Right about 9 o'clock. I want to say thank you for everybody coming on today. Today we have a guest speaker, Tiffany Cross with CredEvolv. She's done a couple webinars for us with our loan team, and she has excellent information, and she is an excellent resource for clients that maybe you're talking to or potential clients you're talking to who maybe aren't quite, uh, lender ready yet. Maybe they have a couple credit issues, but maybe they're close. And many times, a company like CredEvolv can get them mortgage ready in just a couple months. And Tiffany will explain that a little bit more. Tiffany, you had sent me a much better uh, topic name for this webinar, but I had already created the image. So but anyways, we're going to go over basically all things credit. If you have any questions, looks like you have a fan in the chat already.
Oh,
Um, if you have any questions, either raise your hand, you can talk live, or just throw them in the chat, and we'll kind of answer as we go along. But other than that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tiffany. Good morning. How you doing?
good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. And Angela, good morning. Thank you. Thank you for the shout out. All right. So I will go ahead and get started. I will share my deck here in a second, but I just want to introduce myself. My name is Tiffany Cross, and I am the EVP of National Sales here at CredEvolv. I have a long history in what we call the consumer hardship space. And quite frankly, I owned my own for profit credit repair company for nearly 18 years here in the Southern California area. Many of you have maybe have heard of it. It was Dedicated Credit Repair. Dedicated Credit Repair was acquired by CredEvolv about 2.5 years ago, and I brought my entire team to CredEvolv, and then, of course, became the leader of our sales organization. But part of the reason why I made the transition is something I want to talk about today because it speaks to the trends in the credit industry. About 3 years ago, the government came in very hot handedly and said, listen, we recognize that at the time, only 3%, guys, 3% of all for profit credit repair companies were operating legally and ethically nationwide. And that's a big problem, right? We understand that when you're working with your clients and you go, gosh, I have this consumer that's this close to qualifying for a mortgage. Who can I send them to for credit remediation? The problem was that, and it still remains, that the for profit credit repair world was laden with bad actors. And those were companies that were charging upfront fees, promising results that were frankly impossible. I like to say that unfortunately, most bad actors in the credit repair space would say that if you had a credit card in a heartbeat, they'd put you in the program and quite frankly, never even care about whether or not you ever reached your goal. And since that became such a prevalent issue, the government came in and said, listen, it's illegal now for any for profit credit repair company to charge even $1 for credit repair services until they've completed the full work, waited 6 months to ensure that the results were actually going to stick and be permanent. And then the consumer would need to sign off on making a payment to the company or the individual doing credit repair. That law is actually called the TSR, which we call the telesales marketing rule. If you Google the TSR and use and put Lexington law, for example, next to it, you'll see the multi-billion-dollar lawsuit that took the biggest leader in the industry, Lexington Law, out of business. So I saw the handwriting on the wall about 3 years ago. I was operating legally and ethically, always DOJ compliant, CFPB compliant, but never ever wanted to sacrifice my ethics and standards. So I mentioned that to you because if you have worked with a credit repair person or company and they are for profit, meaning they're a for profit entity, they are illegally operating if they're charging even $1 for credit repair. So it's incredibly important that you, as a realtor, understand that this is a huge change in our industry. It's not new. It's now been in place now for over 3 years. And quite frankly, it would be very similar to you referring your client to a general contractor that wasn't licensed, right? So it's incredibly important that you know that. I wanted to talk about that because my shift to CredEvolv was based on first and foremost that, right? Understanding that there's a compliant way forward. And the compliant way forward is to work with a nonprofit. Okay, so nonprofit credit repair entities like CredEvolv, we work with HUD approved, right? So government approved counselors that are not just credit experts, but housing focused. So when we talk a little bit, and I will share my deck today, I want to talk about the difference between old school credit repair, which traditionally was just consumers signing up for a program, getting a very one size fits all solution where essentially the only method of resolution was to dispute and challenge negative information on a credit report. In my previous life at DCR, our dedicated credit repair, we did much more than that. But regardless, that is what the norm is. You have to understand that that is only one piece of what is keeping consumers from becoming mortgage ready. So I'm going to share my deck. I did see there was a hand raised. Travis, do you want to read what the question is for me so I can make sure I see it correctly? Oh, looks like you're on mute. Sorry.
Yep, that was me. Looks like it was Priya. Priya, do you want to ask a question? You should be able to unmute. You can also type in the chat as well. And then Guillermo, looks like Guillermo has maybe a question. Maybe they're just testing out the
Hand raise. Okay.
yeah,
I can come back to it. Not a problem.
yeah.
All right. So I wanted to touch on that compliance issue first, because of the fact that it's absolutely the biggest change in our industry. And I have had so many realtors nationwide. By the way, we work with clients in all 50 states that have said in different pockets of the US, gosh, I've always had this guy that I use, or I've always liked this company. Are you saying that they're illegally operating? And the answer is yes. If they're charging any fees whatsoever before the completion of services, that is a big problem, right? So if they're not a nonprofit and they're not HUD approved, then that is just something we need to talk about. So I just talked a little bit about CredEvolv, already went through a little bit about my, gosh, 20 years of experience, you guys. I'm getting older and older by the minute. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the importance of credit literacy in real estate. So, for those of you that are seasoned professionals that have been working in the real estate industry for any length of time, we recognize that today's borrower or today's consumer looks a lot different on paper than they did even just a few years ago. When I say pre COVID, right? There was a different real estate rhythm essentially with credit. We're now seeing that consumers are coming to us saying, I don't have enough money for a down payment, or affordability is an issue. And I also have credit issues, right? So it's not just score driven that consumers are having concerns. They're not sure of what mortgage would be the best for them given their specific FICO score. So I'm stressing to you today that as you're looking at opportunity, right, where you can find opportunity, start listening for different types of discussion around down payment assistance, budgeting, mortgage selection, debt. Debt is a big one, guys. We recognize that today the consumer's debt loads are 10 times what they used to be. And I say that conservatively, frankly. People have been living paycheck to paycheck for almost 5, 6, 7 years now. We're seeing a huge shift in debt loads. And it's incredibly important that a consumer that wants to become a homeowner not just be thinking about FICO scores, but how can we get their DTI in place so that they can actually be approved for a mortgage. Again, debt to income is an incredibly important thing that consumers are asking about. If you're doing open houses or you're talking to consumers and you're involved in the community, you might consider offering a first-time homebuyer seminar that's focused on credit literacy. Now, I'm not asking you to become a credit expert, quite the contrary. But if you want to partner with me and CredEvolv, we can come alongside you and offer virtual workshops for your first-time home buyers. One shift that we've seen, frankly, post-COVID is very few people go to an in-person event where they're going to talk about first-time home buying workshops. So offering a virtual after hours what I call credit literacy workshop is always, always super important. And it allows you to become what I call a real estate waymaker, where you can show consumers that are sitting on the fence line right now, waiting out the market, hoping for a crash, right? They're saying, gosh, the market's got to shift. I'm going to wait. Those consumers that are sitting on the fence line, believe it or not, 1 in 4 of them are sitting there because they think their credit is the thing that's keeping them from becoming mortgage ready. So great way to start really getting out there and creating value and making an impact for your buyers. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some additional factors that are creating the perfect storm for borrowers right now, and that is student loans, right? We see student loan issues all the time. We, as nonprofit HUD counselors, offer student loan assistance. That is not something that for profit credit repair companies can legally do. So you can imagine the amount of individuals out there that are like, oh my gosh, frankly, I've seen some that have $100,000 worth of student loans and they don't even know where to start. So that issue alone is something that sets us apart. But I'll also talk a little bit about inflation, underemployment. Recently, my husband actually, about in June, I think it was actually laid off. He was a part of he worked for Easy Go, which is a very large organization, and they did what many huge companies have done, and they did a labor force reduction to keep up with the inflation and the issues that are happening in the economy. So this speaks to my own heart. But you've got consumers that are underemployed, that are working 3 jobs instead of the one that they used to have to be able to keep up with what they're under inflation and then frankly unemployment. We have people that are having a hard time with budgeting and saving for down payment. Again, this is important that you understand that there are solutions in place that are outside of what used to be what I call 1990s credit repair. Okay. We also see an increase in identity theft. How many of you are on Facebook and you see these amazing ads that pop up and they just happen to know that you just wanted a new washer and dryer and they've been what I call cyber stalking you? And you go, oh, look, I have the ability to put this on a pay later, right? They have all these pay later opportunities, what I call opportunities, apps that you can actually pay later. There are a tremendous amount of opportunities there for identity theft to happen. So again, just start thinking about different topics like life events, divorce, right? We see that's on the rise post COVID, businesses that had to dissolve, a lot of restaurant owners, a lot of different companies that had to do some transitioning because of COVID. Again, even though it seems like COVID was 100 years ago for some of us, really credit reports are just now starting to reflect the damage because consumers were living on credit cards during that season. And now we're seeing the aftermath. So for individuals that say, listen, I'd love to buy a home, but they start mentioning any of these topics to you, I want you to say, listen, I'm Travis. I am a real estate waymaker. Let me make an introduction to our nonprofit or my favorite nonprofit HUD counselor. I'm not obligating you to anything, but I do think a free consultation would be incredibly valuable. Okay. I'll talk a little bit more about our program and pricing and all that fun stuff here in a second. But I guess what I'm trying to say is if you know that 1 in 4 consumers are sitting out, waiting it out because they think credit is keeping them from being mortgage ready, we got to start offering solutions and you've got to start making introductions because guys, taking somebody from a low 500 FICO score to a high 600 is super easy. And Travis said it right at the very beginning. It only takes a couple months. So imagine being a consumer that thinks they're 3, 4 years away from being a homeowner, and really they might just be 4 months away. Pretty cool stuff. We can't change affordability. I can't alter interest rates, but if credit is the only thing keeping you from being mortgage ready, then we got your back, right? So that's really kind of a fun conversation that we can be having with consumers. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the power behind a HUD counselor. Besides the fact that we have mortgage readiness built into our counseling platform, what does that mean? We have the same technology that mortgage lenders use in decisioning. All of the AUS guidelines that lenders use to determine loan eligibility is built into our credit repair counseling platform. That is huge. Credit repair companies do not have access to that same technology. So, what does that mean? It means that when we're working with your clients to improve their FICO score, we're also working with their budget. We're working with their DTI. We're helping them navigate student loans. We're helping them determine which credit cards need to be paid down in what order and how to strategically do that based on their own personal budget. It's just a much more robust and granular solution than a traditional credit repair. Now, I also want to mention that in our program, your clients have their own personal credit coach. It's like having a gym trainer that meets with them every single month for 30 to 45 minutes at a time that says, okay, Travis, I keep saying you, Travis, you're the only one I can see your pretty face. So, but
Not a problem.
hey, Travis, you know what? We talked last month. We talked about you opening up this secured card to help build your credit. It looks like you've done that. So now that we've done that, we're going to work on these 4 things this month. So it allows that one-on-one accountability because quite frankly, guys, it's really overwhelming when you have bad credit to know where to start. It's very easy to want to put your head in the sand and ignore it. And then it becomes that snowball. For many of you who are out there going, gosh, I actually could use a free consultation. Don't be shy because I'll tell you, realtors, lenders, individuals that are commission based are some of our biggest clients right now. They're saying, listen, I've been living on credit cards because, gosh, 4 years ago, my business was thriving as a realtor. Today, it looks a little bit different. So again, it's not about the consumer that just is a bad person. It's about life events that transpire. Like I said, my husband, myself, when I went through my divorce in 2018, don't be afraid to refer your clients if you yourself are saying, gosh, I have some of these things. This is a great way to kind of see it from the inside out. Now, I want to give you some business strategies that are really effective right now. For those of you that are like, listen, I'm hitting it hard with social media marketing. I see a ton of posts where you'll say, I've got a 5-star review from this client. You might be posting listings that are wonderful. But what if you start taking into consideration the top 10 questions that consumers are asking related to credit and debt and their impacts on home ownership? Because again, 1 in 4 consumers are sitting on the sidelines right now because of credit. So I wanted to create a slide deck, and I'll send this to Travis to circulate to you so you don't have to take screenshots or take notes right now. I want you to each have this deck. But these are the questions that consumers are asking our nonprofit HUD counselors. And this is statistically the questions that you should be aware of. What's a good credit score range for securing a mortgage? Real basic question, right? And even what is a credit score and how is it calculated? We get this all the time because consumers are on Credit Karma getting what I call FACO score and not realizing it is not the same score that mortgage lenders use. Quite frankly, it's not used in any decisioning at all, ever. It's just a gauge, right? It's not your mortgage FICO score. It's not a FICO product. Now, I say that to you to say that if you were to take any one of these questions and go over to Chat GPT and say, create a Facebook post using this credit topic that drives a consumer to reach out to me for real estate needs. Can you even imagine? I can tell you right now that you're going to get some people that private message you. I didn't know that about student loans. Wait a minute. You mean to tell me that my Experian credit monitoring isn't providing me with a mortgage score? All you have to do is create the conversation, and then you can obviously refer them to us. You don't need to be a credit expert, guys. I'm not trying to say that you are, but how can you create conversation and interest with things that are relevant and needed today? Again, this is your opportunity to be a connector and a solution bringer with positivity in the market. Do I see a question?
No, someone was just remarking brilliant.
Okay, let's go here. I'm going to actually use this. Create a 60-second video script to be used on social media explaining the FICO score. Okay. So, I mean, come on, you guys. Where was this when I was in college? This is so good, right? So, for those of you that say, okay, I love this, you can just start here and say, so what affects your score? Payment history, paying on time is crucial. length of history, so I guess what I'm saying is don't get in the weeds with it. Use this, create a little 60-second script and use the content that consumers care about, right? It's so, so important to use the tools that are available to you. Now,
And I
I
think
want to,
also letting them know in that little script that you are, you have connections. You can get this
yes.
done. Nonprofits. I think you probably, I'm gonna guess saying nonprofit probably has a better, comes across better than, hey, I can get you over to a credit person, you know?
Because we see this all the time, right? And I fought this for the 17 years that I owned my own business. I was an ethical credit repair company for profit. But the reality is that that was seriously 3%, you guys. And so chances are someone's already used a company that took advantage of them.
Yep.
Or perhaps they have the misconception that credit repair and debt settlement are the same. I have so many times where we talk to consumers where they're like, well, I was in a credit repair program and it didn't work and they told me not to pay my bills, when they're misunderstanding that credit repair and debt settlement are two different industries. So again, it's just so many misconceptions.
Yeah.
Um, there's 5 factors of the FICO score. I want to throw a little bit of a mic drop in here. This isn't taught in school. None of us learned it, and I shouldn't say none. Very few of us learned this in school, but it's not common sense. FICO sense and common sense don't really that coexist together. And I say that because things that you do, like pay off your credit cards, that's good, right? But you don't close them. Paying off your car, not good, right? Well, wait a minute. Why do I lose 60 to 80 points when I pay off and close my car loan? Shouldn't I get a huge reward and boost in my score? Consumers don't realize that there's certain landmines that they could actually be doing incorrectly to self-sabotage their success with mortgage lending. So again, this is important when we can go through this with your clients, but we don't just do it generically. We actually evaluate their credit report and we highlight for them the 35% of their score that's impacting them positively or negatively, the credit card utilization issues that are impacting them positively and negatively. It's super important that each consumer has an understanding that their credit report is as unique as a fingerprint. Literally. So if Travis and I are talking to a credit counselor and we all had the same solution created, it wouldn't be effective. So it's important that that HUD counselor meets with them every single month and really helps identify what factors we could be working on with them and for them to help them reach goal quickly. Now, I want to stress the fact that it's time to take your real estate business back from what became transactional, right? We used to have the fish jumping on the boat. I think we all loved that, right? Where consumers were coming to us saying, "I'm willing to stand in line for 3 hours to see this open house," and everyone was buying. Then we're in the today market. Hopefully that changes soon where we can start seeing a shift again with interest rates dropping. But it's really important that we start adopting an advisor mindset. And again, this doesn't mean we have to be credit experts or mortgage experts. You just need to be relational again. So I really stress networking and community engagement, client appreciation events, anything you can do to create credit literacy or bring education to consumers wherever you're influential. I'm often asked to speak at mortgage conventions, Women's Council of Realtors, NAR rep, you name it, right? And we often hear, what if we created the ability for individuals who maybe haven't always had access to this education and put on these webinars, you guys? I'm happy to co-host them with you. I know you've got some great mortgage partners that can come alongside you so that you have your team behind you, but it's just about creating conversation. Okay, I want to give you another tip from Tiffany, guys. This is one of my favorites. Did you realize that, and this is kind of a fun seminar that I personally attended that FICO put on, each generation has a different why they might want to purchase, and maybe something that's keeping them from purchasing. I'm not going to go through all of this today, but if I were to be thinking as a realtor about my marketing plan for this coming year, we're at the end of the quarter, fourth quarter here. Well, who am I influential with, right? We're not always everybody's everybody. But I want to look at millennials, for example. I'm just going to use one as an example. Millennials might have been, many of them, in high school during the recent crash. When I say recent, the 2008-ish crash, right? What happened during that crash? If you were a teenager and your parents had a foreclosure, what did that look like for you? Perhaps your parents went through a divorce because of the stress. Perhaps you had to move out of state. Maybe you had to leave the school that you were going to and you could no longer play football at the local high school. There might be some trauma around the idea of homeownership, right? They might be scared. What if this happens to me? So, foreclosure prevention conversations are incredibly important. I say this because if you even take ChatGPT and say, create a social media post that speaks to millennials. Sorry, you guys, sorry. Um, about
It-
home
it-
ownership.
Such a hard word to spell.
Here's what we do. Right click.
Yep.
Okay. There we go. So boom. So I didn't, you want to do a little more thought there, but cool, right? Hey, millennial dreamers, da da da. So meet them where they're at, right? So I'm trying to give you some nuggets of things that not everyone's doing, right? And it's just kind of fun to take a look and say, well, maybe I'm speaking incorrectly to millennials and not necessarily hitting them right where they're at. Use Chat GPT. There's other resources available. Obviously, I'd love to help you there as well. But there's different credit trends and different topics that will speak to different generations. And again, we don't want to generalize everyone as trauma based with millennials, but just thinking outside the box in a way that would allow you to create marketing content specific to an individual's why. Okay, we want to turn a no into a yes. So I want to talk a little bit, and by the way, real quick, here's my information. If you want to take your phone out, I was brave enough to put my cell phone on here, you guys, because I love you. But this is my cell phone. You can reach out. There's my email. There's even a QR code if you wanted to refer a client. I wanted to put that up here real quickly. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what it looks like to refer a client. And let's talk about price because I think that's the ultimate, the question that I get most common. Okay. First and foremost, this is our website, CredEvolv.com. Okay, as I mentioned before, we partner with nonprofit HUD counselors. So they're FICO certified credit experts, but they're also housing counselor focused. Again, that's incredibly important. If you're at an open house and somebody comes through the open house and says, I'm the nosy neighbor next door and I want to sell, but I'm afraid I can't because then I wouldn't be able to purchase because my credit, you name it, this is going to come up. You can click on the refer tab. You could have your laptop there. You could literally have your credit, your thing open and say, oh, you know what? Let me make an introduction. I'm not obligating you to anything, but a free consultation will be a really good way to at least get the conversation started with a housing expert who's a credit counselor. All you do is hit the refer tab at the top. You'll scroll down. You guys, all we need is the client's first name, last name, email, and phone number with their permission. Okay. You wouldn't want to send this link to the client. This is for you to complete. And I want to show you why here in a second. If there is a co-borrower, then and you happen to know their information, great, but it's not required. And then you would scroll down and Travis would put his information because it says your first and last name, your email, your phone number. This is why you wouldn't want to send this to a client to complete because chances are they're not going to know your email. When you submit the referral this way, all you're doing is setting the consumer up to receive a free consultation. We will keep you informed every step of the way because you will have entered your contact information. You'll get notes on every counseling session that the consumer has completed. Every month, you're going to receive a progress report from every client that's actively in the program showing you their FICO score improvement. And the best part is that we actually push the client back to you when they're mortgage ready. Because again, we have the same technology that lenders use for decisioning. So within 3 to 5 months, you're going to get an email back that says, congratulations, Tiffany Cross is mortgage ready. Reach out to her. So it's pretty cool. Plus, you get the monthly updates every month. If you send them to me directly, you will not get that information and the updates. This is what keeps you connected to your pipeline so you can nurture that consumer throughout their progress. Super important. Now, in the notes section, you can say, this is a Spanish speaking client. I need a Spanish speaking credit counselor. Or this is a teacher. Please call after 3 o'clock. Okay. Or this is a VA client, right? So we would know that this is somebody that we're going to be trying to get them qualified for a VA loan. Anything that's relevant, and then you click submit. Again, all that does is refer them for a free consultation. Now, after the free consultation, if the consumer decides they want to move forward, it's only $149 to enroll. Now, again, this is a nonprofit model. Therefore, the consumer is not paying anything above and beyond what the hard costs are to do the work. So essentially, they'd be paying the same to do the work themselves. That includes the counselor doing all the work. It includes the budgeting that they do every single month together. Yes, we work with Spanish speaking consumers. That's why I said in the notes section, you would say, this is a Spanish speaking client. I need a Spanish speaking credit counselor. And we even have flyers that are in Spanish too. So I can send that to you after. Thank you for asking. But it includes the cost of the credit reports. It includes the budgeting. It includes the credit remediation. So it's the one-time setup fee of $149, and the monthly fee begins on month 2. It's $113 a month. There's no cancellation fee. There's not ever a time where where someone's locked into a contract. It's just month to month. When they reach goal, they cancel, and that's it. So I'd say the average consumer pays anywhere from $300 to $700 for the course of the entire correction. And honestly, some of our realtor partners will offer it as a closing cost credit or a closing gift, and say, listen, consumer, if you use me as your realtor, at the very end of your program, I'm willing to reimburse you up to 4 months of your credit repair. So just a suggestion there. So that's the cost, that's the time frame. This is a way for you to say, listen, I have a great resource. I want to speak real quickly and tell you that we are vetted by FICO. FICO has approved us as a vendor. We are actually partnered with the National Mortgage Bankers Association, Fannie and Freddie, as well. So the two largest, Fannie and Freddie, if you are familiar with the loans, they're actually strategic partners of ours. So this is not a onesie twosie. We're a very large organization that is quickly becoming the preeminent credit solution for most mortgage companies across the nation.
Yeah, and I do like the idea of, maybe offering to rebate and things like that, especially now that, post NAR settlement, everybody's, putting together their compensation agreements and things like that. So it could be a good lead in, if you are having a little bit of a challenge or something like that on getting that signed, to offer that rebate in your buyer rep agreement. So then you're kind of locking in two things there at the same time. So yeah.
Win-win for everybody, right? The consumer wins, you win. We'll see a shift here. We are seeing a tremendous amount of people that are just really discouraged right now. And this is all about relationships and bringing that transactional mindset back to relational. And I think that this is going to be a power tool for each of you moving forward, this new year.
Yep. And we've talked a lot about value and showing your value. And this is one of the things you can definitely bring to the table is this relationship with, credit repair. And even if it's just a small bump they need, maybe they're just
Did I lose
trying to
you?
get, oh, maybe. Am I back on now? Hopefully I'm back on. I think my internet dropped here.